Welcome back again. My name is Robert SK, and today I'm going to take you through another lesson about Adobe Photoshop. Today we're going to look at advanced coloring, color correction, and color grading using Adobe Camera Raw filter. Yes, we're going to go into depth about Camera Raw filter in Adobe Photoshop. First of all, Camera Raw filter is a raw processing filter that was introduced by Adobe Photoshop to kind of replace Adobe Lightroom. For those that are familiar with Adobe Lightroom, you understand what I mean by Adobe Lightroom. Camera filter is a filter that is exactly similar to Adobe Lightroom when it comes to processing raw files, when it comes to working with the colors and all that. Yes, without wasting a lot of time, let's get started. I'll get a raw file here for us to work with. Then I put it in my Photoshop. Uh, the camera filter I'm working with is Camera 13. I think it was released with Adobe Photoshop 2021. And first of all, this is how your interface will look like for the Camera 13 and above. This is the window for the workspace of your image, and here on the side you have the different adjustments and all that. You have the basic, the curve, the detail, the color mixer, the color grading, the optics, the geometry, the effects, the calibration, and all that. When you come to to this one here, you have the profile. Then we have the histogram that will help you to see the different tones of the image, the colors, the highlights, shadows, and all that. Then on the side here, we have the different tools that will help us when you want to adjust, to crop and rotate, to remove spots and all that. Then you have the hand tool here. We have the, the sampler, the sampler for the image, for the filter. And up here you have the convert and save option. Then you have the full screen option for us here. If you want to work with a full screen, that is where you click. Then down here you have the profile of the image. It was shot in Adobe RGB profile 1998 using 8-bit, and that is the size. It was 4024 by 6048. It is a 24.3 megapixel camera that shot it, and you see that the camera is described here. It is a Nikon Z6. When you look at the right, you have the image specification, the ISO value. Then you have the focal length and the lens type. The lens was 70 to 200 at 155 millimeters. Then our shutter speed was, our exposure time was 1/100 of a second. Then the aperture was f3.5. Basically, that is the information that you need to see before getting started. You know that your camera was shooting at using the Adobe RGB color profile, and if you need to convert it, that is where you will need to look at. So basically, this is how your image will look like when you put it in Photoshop. The first thing to do when you're going to work with a raw file, first of all, there is what we call the camera matching the profile, the picture profile which you set in your camera for this image. Basically, if this picture was shot using an Nikon Z6, when I come to the profile here, but initially it is like this. When I'm to browse for more profiles, I'll click on this and I'll look for my camera matching down here. I won't use the Adobe profiles here. I'll need to use the camera matching. I think with this image I shot using the portrait picture profile, picture style of the portrait. So I'll select that and I'll go back. So after selecting the camera portrait, I'll now go to the basic. The basic will help you to adjust the different things that are basic in the camera or on the image. One is a white balance. You see that it is the first thing here to work with. If you want to sample from the image, you can pick the white balance tool and maybe look for a white spot in the image. I prefer sampling from the eyes because they give me the natural white of they'll detect the whole scene and all that. But if I sample from any white from the image, it will give me a rough value of where my temperature should be. Then I'll work around that area to slightly fix my white balance and my tint, so the temperature will see that the temperature at which you shoot is the default temperature that you find here. This is 5350, so if you need to reduce it, this is where you come. And in order to work with the tint, you see that our tint is at -4, so this is where you will adjust that. If you want to add greens or remove greens from your image, this is where you work with. Being an outdoor image, that is what I need to reduce the greens because they might have spilled on my image. So that is basically that. Then the next step will be working with the light, the basic lighting and all that. The one advantage with the camera filter, it will help you to work with the split lighting and all that. So first of all, there is an exposure here. It will help you to increase the exposure or to reduce the exposure. If you want to, you may find that by default it was there, so I think I'll need to reduce it down a little depending on which kind of look I want to have. Then increase the contrast up to, since when you're shooting your camera, you tend to reduce the contrast in order to have control of the colors, so you'll find that your image has no contrast, and this is where you need to increase the contrast from. Then the highlights is where you adjust your highlights from. To have more information in the highlights, you can reduce them, and maybe the shadows, to have more information, you can open them up. Then I reduce the whites a little bit, or increase the whites to have a glamorous kind of look at my image. Then I can reduce the blacks to have more contrast again. So looking at that, I think we are having a fine image already. So here I can increase the clarity to have more details of the image. If I'm to zoom it in, you see that we have that. Then the vibrance to have more information of the colors and all that. The saturation, I don't think I'll need to work on it. Then we also have the curve. The curve, you know how we work with the curve. In the middle you have the midtones and all that. At the top we have the highlights. If you want to adjust the highlights a little bit, and below we have the shadows if you want to work with the shadows. So basically that is how the curve works. Then you have the red filter here. If you want to do a little bit of adjust a little bit of the red channel, you have the green channel, then you have the blue channel, so you can have it at that. Then we go into details. This is where you find that you have your sharpening of the image and the noise reduction, maybe the color noise reduction. If when you're shooting people, most times you tend to reduce the sharpness so that you have control when it comes to the post-production of that skin and the texture and all that. So when you come to the sharpening here, to the details option, you need to increase the sharpness up, and maybe you can bring the radius down a little bit, or you take it up depending on what you want to achieve, but I prefer having it at default. Then masking, increasing the masking will help you have your sharpness directed to the edges mainly. So if I hold down my option key, you see that I'm trying to direct my sharpness to the edges by increasing the masking like that. So I think I prefer having the masking up a little bit. Then the noise reduction will help you remove the noise from the image that was brought about by increasing the ISO. You see that my ISO value was at 50 since I was shooting in a forest and I was having a little bit of limited available light, so I needed to increase the ISO. So now I need to reduce the noise. I increase my noise reduction to a little bit, to around 20. Can take it beyond that, but the more you take it, the more you lose out on the details, so I don't need to take it overboard. So I think 30 will be good for that. Maybe color noise reduction if you have any color noise in your image and all that. So basically that is what you have for the details option. Then we have the color mixer. The color mixer is more of the hue, saturation and lightness, or that, or you can call it the luminance. Here we work on the color split. The other advantage the camera raw has is that with this, it is with this feature. When you look at the colors we have, when you go to the hue saturation of the Photoshop, you'll find that we have only the reds, yellows, greens, cyans, or the aquas. Then you have the blues and the magentas. But this one further adds in the what we call the tertiary colors. The tertiary colors is the orange and the purple. So you find that at some point you need to work on the oranges or the purples at some point. So this one will give you an option, that option. So in order to work on that, you see that you have your saturation here, your hue here, and your lightness or luminance here. So if I want to maybe increase my saturation in the reds, this is where I'll come. If I want to reduce saturation maybe on the skin, my skin will be more of the oranges, so I'll adjust the oranges, then the yellows here, the greens here, and all that. If you find that you don't want to have the greens in your image, and you want to have such a cinematic kind of look or color grading, this is what you will have. Aquas are next to blue, are between blue and the greens, so you'll find that in most images that have greens or blues, you'll find the aquas. Then the blues, in our fabric you see that we have some blues, and this is where you can increase the saturation and have more information in that. Then the purples, still in the fabric we have the purples, so this is where you work on them. So if I want to maybe create a dramatic kind of color grading, it is the hue side that I'll go to and slightly kind of try to play around with my greens. Maybe can play around with my aquas. The oranges affect the skin, so I don't need to play around with them. Probably I will need to have just that. Maybe increasing the lightness a little bit in my skin. And you see the before and the after that color mixer. So if I unsee that, you see that I have that. So you see how our image was initially. If I toggle between the before and the after, our image was like this, and these are the current settings. So basically that is how you can work with the light and the colors with when you're working with the camera raw filter. Going further, maybe to color grading, in the advanced modes or in the advanced versions of the camera raw filter from camera raw 13 upwards, you find that we have the color wheels. Same applies to the Lightroom. The Lightroom version that was released in 2021 upwards has the color wheels. So these color wheels will help you with color grading to have a particular look in a certain tone. So if you want to have a certain look in your midtones, this is where you look for the color in your midtones, and this is where you look for which color you want to have in your shadows. This is where you look for the color, which color you want to have in your highlights. So if probably I want to have a golden kind of look in my midtones, I can put it there. And here you increase the lightness of that color. And probably if I want to have a little bit of blue in my shadows, not so much, then I can reduce the lightness still in the shadows and a popping color in my highlights, let's say orange. This is where you can blend that. If you want to blend it further, you can take it there. If you want to reduce it, you can blend it there. Then this is more of balancing, which side you want to be on. If you want to be so much on the shadows side, you can take it to the left. You want to take it so much on the highlights and midtone side, you can take it there, but I prefer the shadows side. So basically that is how you work with the color wheels. If you want to have another kind of look, this will have the shadows alone, the midtones alone, and the highlights. Then this will be global. A global will be like a general kind of effect that you want to have on your image, a general kind of filter or color that you want to have on your image. And it is here that you see that you can work with the hue, saturation, and all that, and the lightness. So basically that is what we call color grading. If I'm to unsee the color grading, you see that we have a really unique kind of look in our image, which I think I like compared to the one that we had before the color grading. It's giving us more information of the subject and kind of darkening the background. So basically that is dealing with the color and light in camera raw filter. Going further to the optics, we have what we call the in optics mainly when I go to the manual side, I normally look at the lens distortion. When you work with lenses with low focal length, for example the 14, when you shoot at 14mm, between 14 to 18mm, you find that your image will kind of be distorted. Like, I don't know if you've come across an image that kind of looks distorted like this. So this is where you can correct that from. The vigneting, you can call it the vigneting or you can call it the vigneting or the vigneting, anything that you want. Excuse me for that. Will kind of give you that effect on the edges or the corners of the image, and it is here that will adjust the midpoint of your effect. Basically that is more in creating dramatic kind of looks in your images. The geometry is more of rotation and all that, the transformation and all that, working with the aspect, scaling, putting it offset. If it is offset, you can correct it from here. Basically that is where the geometry comes in, the straightening, all that. I rarely use that. I don't normally use it. Maybe the effects, I can use the effects for having a little bit of grain in my image. If I want to have a vintage kind of look, I can have it here. Then the vigneting, still just like the one we were having, is where you adjust it from, and here you can adjust it further with all that, the midpoint, the roundness, and the feather of the effect. It is here that you work with the highlights as well, and the effect of the vigneting. So seeing between the before and the after, applying the effects, that is what we have. We are narrowing down the background to have more of our subject being visible and more pronounced. So that is what we have for the effects. Then calibration. Initially calibration was more of camera calibration where you had to match, to do the camera matching that we did with the profile. So this is why you are doing the camera matching and you do the adjustment in the earlier versions of the camera raw filter. But I think versions between 2017 and upwards, they changed the profile to some other spot, and this one will just help you maybe to work with more of color grading with the primary colors. Maybe if you want to work with the reds to give them a certain look, want to work with the greens, this is where you can give the greens a certain look and the effect there. So basically that is what this gives you. It is more of a color grading tool that will help you. So if you check out the before and the after, I think I like what we just created. So this is more of an artistic kind of look compared to the one we had straight out of camera. So after doing all that, if you want to save, you can just come to this one. You can just come to the want to save, you can just come to the upper left corner here and you click on that, the save button. Saving an image, this is where what you have to look at is basically the format. I tend to save in the JPEG format and the quality has to be to maximum. Then the color space, the fact that we are saving it for very many purposes, for example the internet, the social media, the website, and the print media, all that. I think I prefer working with the sRGB color profile, because if you work with the Adobe RGB, the one that we had initially, you have your colors like being converted when you upload your images to different sites. So it's better to have your color space at sRGB and like that. Then the image sizing, I think I prefer having the resolution at 300, because 300 will be easy for me will give me a better quality when I'm printing or all that. But if you're going to use it for maybe uploading the website, 72 pixels per inch will be better, or 75 maximum. Then the sharpening, if you want to sharpen, this is where you sharpen for screen or for printing. In the amount of sharpness, that is where you look for it. Then you click on save. When you click on save, if you have one image, this will be the process that will be taking place. If you have more than one, there will be loading, and your timeline is here of your images. If you have more than one images, they will be running along this. So basically that is it for the camera filter, using it for processing raw files and all that. If you want to further open your image, you click on open and it will go to Photoshop. But just looking at more of these tools, you have the crop tool. If you want to crop your image to a certain ratio, maybe 4:5 of the Instagram and all that. Then you have the healing brush. Then you have the healing brush. If you want to work with the healing brush, this is where you adjust the opacity and the size of the brush and all that. This will help you to remove the spots and all that, the pimples, the spots from an image. Then we have the adjustment brush, we have the gradient filter, we have the radio filter, we have the red eye removal to remove red eyes. Then we have the snapshots, if you want to take a snapshot of that to save it. Then the other important issue to look at is presets here, the presets option here. When you come to the presets option will help you to save a certain color that you are working with. For example, if I'm to save this kind of look and apply it to another image, I'll just come here to the presets option and then I click on this to the create preset and I save it as maybe or green, color grading, or anything that you want. Color cinematic. Then when you look at maybe all these settings that you did, the ones that you want to be included, you can remove them. That you don't want to be included, you can remove them. And maybe if you want just to have the colors, the color mix, and only that, you can have that. If you want to have even the profiles that you added, you can leave them. Even the basic information, the basic adjustments, sorry. Then this is where you save your preset to user presets. Maybe if you want to create a new group of presets, you can create it, and you press OK. When you press OK, that preset that you've created, the color cinematic, will be under user preset. It will be right here. And if I'm to put another image, for example, and to put another image that I want to have with the same look, when I load it like that, I'll just come to the presets option and I look under user presets. Then I click on color cinematic. I'll have I'll save time by having my preset for the same project saved. So I just go on adding and maybe doing a few adjustments. Maybe when I look at this, there is too much color, and decide to reduce the vibrance and all that, and maybe increase the exposure, reduce the highlights. So you just do something small to your image, since you have your preset in place. So I think that is all for the camera filter. Working with the camera filter to do color grading and color correction and all that. Thank you very much for watching. We shall meet in the next video.